I've had a couple of people ask me how I'm working with interior paneling and what I'm doing to prepare the wall for gluing new paneling onto it. The first key thing you have to do is get the old glue off. Now the best way to get it off is to sand it, but you're gonna have to throw the biggest equipment at it that you have. A palm sander is not going to get it. You're going to work very hard with a palm sander. The reason for that is this glue, once it gets hot, it will melt and it will gum up your sanding disc. And then you're getting nowhere, and it happens within 5 minutes, and you're done. You'll replace it. So the way I'm doing it is by the really radical method, and that is, it looks like this. Okay, angle grinder with a flap sanding disc on it. Now the sanding disc or the flap sander still gums up. You can see it right here. It's all, this is all glue and wood mixture gumming up the sanding disc. However, this spins so fast and creates so much heat that it melts all the glue off. It just melts it all and moves it to the side of the stud. You can kind of see how this, there's a little bit of glue left. This is nothing to worry about as long as it's not thick. And then here are all the bits. So when you're done, all of this glue is moved over to the side, and then you can just kind of wipe it off. Done. Takes very little time to do this. Yeah, you have your wall clean in absolutely no time. Now the point of this is, to give the new glue a good surface to adhere to, and to get little bits of old plywood paneling off, so you don't have any high or low spots. I mean, it's not that critical, but you want to do a pretty decent job. So the next thing is to replace gimp trim. I'm just going to put this away. Okay, so gimp trim looks like this. It's called gimp trim or welt trim, or there are a number of names for it, but it has a flat spot, and then it has the welt on one side. And the flat spot is intended so you can staple it to the wall. Now the way it was initially applied when the trailer was manufactured is the following. The wall was on the floor in the shop. The paneling was applied to the wall, and then the gimp trim was stapled to the top of the wall while the wall was still on the floor. From the top, the staple went down into the wood. Now obviously, with the wall in place and the ceiling on, you can't do that. It doesn't work. So what you have to do is, there's enough of a gap in between the wall and the ceiling. Let's see if I can show this, to slide the gimp trim in. So you slide it in just a little bit, like that. There, you got another section in. You do it so it sticks out just enough. And then you can take the stapler and run the staple through from the bottom up, as close to the wall as you can get it. Okay, you have to be careful that you're not stapling through the welt, because that's what you're going to see. But everything that you staple in behind here is going to vanish on top of the new paneling. So you can get actually a pretty good result with that. Can kind of cheat. Again, the gimp trim is supposed to be applied from the top, but you can get it in from the bottom like this. So But anyway, it does pretty much what the gimp trim is supposed to do. It's supposed to hide the gap between the wall and your ceiling, and that's what it does. This way or another way. So I'm gonna get on working now, and again, I was just taking this to explain how to work with the interior paneling and how to prep your walls. Cheers. Okay, just a brief update at this point, but I'm really excited about this one, and that is because I am actually sitting in my bedroom on the floor in place, the wall paneling all done, windows cut. The sliding doors aren't quite in place yet, but that's really just a few minutes to do. Here you can see the floor came, or this whole bedroom part came together surprisingly easily. I mean, everything was supposed to be the same size as it used to be, but you know how it goes, that somewhere you really screw up and you end up with gaps. But in this case, everything just fell into place. This is the original floorboard. I kept it. It was not really damaged, so there was no reason to replace it. I just replaced a little bit of framing underneath. As you can see, my bed frame here is in place, just not fastened down yet. I'll look for a nice piece of carpet to put in here, but that can be done after everything is closed up, so I'm not too much in a rush at this point. I got more important things to work on. But what I'd really like to show real quickly here is what I had to do in order to make my new floor support system to work. Here you can see the metal tab that's coming up from the kingpin framing underneath, and you can see how it comes up and kind of the walls are cradled on this, and then the floor comes up against it from the inside. So in order to put a nut here, so I'm going to put a bolt through the wall from the outside and then fasten this, or fasten a nut on the end here. That's going to hold everything in place. And then obviously there's going to be this bolt here, which is just a carriage bolt, just like this one here, just not pushed through yet. So that will hold everything down onto the frame. So this will hold everything sideways, and this one will hold everything down. Now, I guess that only one would be enough, but well, we got the provisions for two, so we may as well make use of that. You can see here, this is new siding that I put underneath, and this was put in place obviously before this wooden floor section came in. So yeah, the way to do this is to spread your walls out as while they are still not fastened to anything, so you can actually bend them out, and then slide your pieces in, your pieces of siding, make everything square, make everything fit. There's one or a couple of critical sections here. Actually, one is in the back, and unfortunately you won't be able to see this because I'm too much advanced in the work. But right underneath about here, that's where this aluminum siding ends, and it just essentially butts against a wall. So there's really very little overlap or anything that could prevent water from getting past the siding and touching wood. Obviously that's something that we want to avoid at all costs. So what I did is, against the wall, I applied a very thick bead of an all-weather exterior heavy-duty silicone. Like the things that come to mind are Sika Flex would probably be a good product for this, or Quad is another silicone product that will work extremely well here and will last virtually forever. So anyway, there is a really thick bead of silicone, so the last little bit of the siding is completely embedded in silicone, so that no spray, nothing possibly can get in behind it. I'm hoping this will work. Again, from the trailer manufacturer, there was just a little bit of silicone there, but not much. The silicone sat kind of on top of the wood and did not really prevent water from touching wood. So anyway, that is one of the critical sections here that I had to deal with. The other one, and for that one I'm actually going to get down. Okay, so this is the siding. You can see it here. That's the new siding. Actually, the critical section of silicone that I talked about is actually right here. You can see the end of it. So you can see how the siding just butts up against the wood, and there you can see just the end of this thick bead of silicone. Ends right here, and then there's obviously metal going down, which protects all of it down below. The same thing is, same rule applies here. You can see how there's silicone applied in between the two sections of siding that I had to use here. So the straight bit of siding ends here, and then the creased part, or the seam, or the end piece of the other siding, is such that it is lapping that way. I don't know how to explain this. You kind of have to see it before, so I'm going to take this off. So here's the end, and it wraps around like this and then comes back, and then this other piece just slides in. But I applied silicone to this piece and on top of this piece, so that as the second piece of sliding comes in, it kind of sandwiches the silicone. And the other critical part is you don't want ugly looking silicone on the bottom of your siding. Alright, so actually the way this worked out, there's no smear on the siding underneath. So and it still seals extremely well. So yeah, and then the other bit of modification that I had to do is obviously for this tab that goes through and holds the wall in place, and it goes through right here, and there's some silicone oozing out. The way I did this, again, I pried the walls out so that an 8-foot section of siding would clear the wall and could slide underneath, and then where the siding sat on top of the tab, I drilled a hole right on top of the tab, And then I used a shear, an electric shear, to cut a slit into the siding, and then, so the siding would, or the tab would slide just right through the slit, and then sealing it off with silicone again, so to prevent water from getting in, and the same on the other side, and then it was essentially ready for the floor. It wasn't too hard to do, except for maybe the pieces being very large. So a second hand, a helper would really have helped here. And you know, if you're working on a project like this, I can recommend to have a helper around when you need one. A couple of notes on the side. When you're working with this interior paneling, just really take your time. If it takes you a day to do a wall, spend the day. This plywood is a little bit hard to work with, and if your wall isn't square and your plywood is, then you have gaps showing, and you want to work as hard as you can to make the plywood fit really well. Take it off a couple of times if you need to. And do it over and over again before you apply glue. Finally, after you applied glue, make sure you clamp it in place really well. And windows really help there. If you can cut holes, at least a few rough holes where the window is going to be. Doesn't need to be a finished cut, but if you can do that, then you can take pieces of wood like this and clamp diagonally along the panel, and then you can make sure that all sections of panel attach properly to your framework. Otherwise, you're just prone to get bulges, and then your glue doesn't set, or your panel is not properly fastened to the wall, and later on you'll get rattly sections. And the other thing is, the panel is kind of an integral part of the structure of the trailer, in that it does prevent some sideways motion and torsion and all those kinds of things that would otherwise happen with a framing that is essentially relies on no braces whatsoever, no diagonal braces, and essentially just staples. Keep in mind that originally everything was stapled in this trailer. Only during this repair and renovation I applied glue in certain places. So yeah, I tightened the walls onto the floor using kind of the same type of broad head screw. Again, previously these screws were intended to take movement or forces sideways, or in this case up and down, and they didn't work at all. So in this case, all they're doing is to hold the walls against the floor. So they must be up to the task. A little bit of a little side project here coming up on my bed frame. This bed frame is just a box with a sheet of plywood on top. It's not even fastened down, so you're supposed to be able to take this off and then access the storage space inside. But it's really awkward, especially if there is a big queen size mattress on here. It's really useless storage space. I can't see I ever put anything in there. However, what I'm thinking is if I cut holes into here, into the wall, and I kind of make myself a drawer system that you can just pull out, put all your stuff in, and close it. Will be much more convenient than working with this plywood. That's gonna come up in the winter. I'm not gonna work on that now. I got more important things to do. So my next step here, since everything else is all the awkward bits are in the trailer, I'm actually gonna close this up. All the walls are finished, so it's just a matter of getting screws and putting the wall up and be done with it. Very excited. So once the walls are in place, then I know exactly where to cut the excess bit of siding off here. It's just a matter of running a line along it and then taking the electric shear and cutting it off. That's all I have to say for now, I guess. Oh yeah, little boo-boo happened. I had a window parked under here, one of my big windows, and I guess it must have got caught under here, right under here. Anyway, when I went into the trailer and working on positioning the floor and fastening it down, I must have rocked the trailer a little bit, and it put pressure onto the window, and that's what happened. Broken glass. So, yeah, well, such is life. I'll get that replaced. It's not too expensive. So, if you, a little tip on the side, you know, if you can keep things out of the way. I'm a little bit limited for space here. If you can keep things out of the way, store it safely, it helps a lot. So, cheers for now.